This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, because them bulls out the pen and they about to stampede.
I don't know if this is correct. Somebody sent it to me. So, but the measurements of Bryce Young is supposedly 6 foot and 200 pounds. So already the combine is not, not pulling any punches. Chancellor, I'll start with you, man. What's your thoughts about this?
Yeah, to me, the big winner of the day has to be Nolan Smith out of Georgia. I think there were some mocks that even had him potentially going to the Texans with that 33rd overall pick, second round. You can forget about that now. That's not happening with his speed and, just with his resume and what he was able to do at Georgia. I think a lot of teams are already high on him, and we know the type of defensive guys that Georgia has been able to put out lately. And so now, if you're the Texans, depending on what you do at 2, you might have to consider him at 12. And I'm interested to see, if D'Amico Ryans can get a hand on an athlete like that, and you can pair him up next to a guy like Christian Harris, who I know the Texans are extremely high on. Now you're talking, and now you're cooking if you're D'Amico Ryans, who obviously is a defensive-minded guy. He would be great on the team. Now, obviously, Bryce Young, that was the big question as far as his measurements go. But, if 6 feet is actually, that's a game changer. Now you are talking about, 6 feet, 200 pounds. The issue is everybody knows that when Bryce Young touches the field to play on a Sunday afternoon, he won't be 200 pounds. Like, that's not his playing weight. That's hey, let me look good on the scale. And so to kind of quiet down these size, this size conversation. But yeah, 6 feet, 200 pounds coming into the to the combine. That's a good sign for Bryce Young and his team, as he has potential to go number 1 overall.
All right, Chris, what about you? Which one's impressing you so far?
It gotta be the guy out of Georgia, but the Bryce Young way, I hope that's his real way. If it is, BT, I can make fun of you right now because you thought you were gonna be smaller than that, see, like me, I'm a Bryce Young guy. Chance, who are you? You're a Bryce Young CJ guy?
Definitely a Bryce Young guy.
Okay, now what do you like about Bryce more than you like about CJ?
So to me, the biggest thing about Bryce is all the talk about all this conversation about size and everything like that. To me, like when it comes to the quarterback position, you either got it or you don't. And when I watch Bryce Young, he has everything that you're looking for as far as like when the game's on the line. Like, I trust him, and so I feel like now in this draft conversations, especially if you're in the AFC, you're going to have to deal with number 15 for the next decade. You're not going to, you're good luck trying to find a quarterback that's better than him. But what you want is a guy that, hey, in a shootout, if he has the ball last, can you beat him? And I'm going to give you an example. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, hey, Joe Burrow can do that. That in a shootout, Joe Burrow can go pound for pound with him, toe to toe with him. There's a couple other teams, in the AFC. Justin Herbert, he hasn't really proven it yet at the highest level, but you feel confident if you're a Chargers fan that he can go do that. The whole conversation, I'll get back to Bryce Young in a second, but I know there's some Texans fans who were like, hey, like, believe in Davis Mills, give him another year, give him weapons. Come on now. Do you trust him to go not only beat Patrick Mahomes at the highest level? If you say you had to get Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game, but you still had to go through Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow first, and or maybe Josh Allen, can he go toe to toe with those guys 3 straight rounds? The answer to that question is no. I haven't seen it.
It's a hell no.
It's a hell no. But a guy like Bryce Young, what we've seen, obviously college is college. Things can change, at the NFL level, but I've seen him do it. And so to me, that's what I look at in a guy in those big pressure situations going against that elite competition. Everybody wants to say, well, how will he look against, NFL's, type players? Well, he played in the SEC. Half of the defensive guys come from the SEC. So he's going against some of these guys, every single Saturday, once you get in the conference play. So that's why I'm really high on Bryce Young. I've seen him be able to make all the throws. And to me, it's not necessarily about like, how big is his arm. Because you look at another guy, as I used earlier, Joe Burrow. It's not like Joe Burrow has a cannon of an arm, but when the game's on the line, you trust him. So that's why I personally am really high on Bryce Young.
All right.
Okay, hold on. So one more thing before we get to BT. Okay, so Chance, do you see Bryce Young playing more than 3 years in the NFL?
Of course, yes.
Okay,
all right.
I had to ask that because it's a guy I know says he's he's not gonna play more than 3 years. So I had to ask that question.
Speaking of that guy, BT, what's your thought?
So, all right. So here's why I think that the Texans should draft CJ over Bryce. Bryce definitely has the processing. He has the skill. The issue that I have is that we don't know, and I don't know if these are the official weight and stuff, because I thought the official weights were for quarterbacks and stuff weren't coming out till Saturday. But in any case, my issue with him is frame. It's not necessarily height, right? Because we've had Russell Wilson, we've had shorter quarterbacks play and succeed and win a Super Bowl. The issue really is frame. Frame has really been my concern. And when you're getting slammed by 320-pound D linemen 40 times a year, how is that going to impact your play? And yes, has he played in the SEC? Yeah. But he's also had this shoulder problem multiple times, according to Nick Saban, that he has this shoulder AC joint issue. He has to stop playing for a bit, and then when he plays, then yeah, he's all right. The thing is, he has to take time off, and that's already happening in college. And to me, what I find challenging is that we are an organization that has won 11 games in 3 years, and if he's 6 foot and 200 pounds, we know that he's going to really be like 192 around there or so on his playing weight. Are we gonna be able to put that on his frame? And it's really more of a frame issue than anything else. I never said this with Kyler Murray, because if you looked at Kyler Murray was diesel. He looked like he could beat any dude up. Because of how strong that he looked. Same thing with Russell Wilson, even Drew Brees. The issue with Bryce Young is not his height particularly, it's his frame. And that's why I think that CJ Stroud, who didn't have the off script, didn't showcase his off script stuff like Bryce Young, and he had, two of the best receivers in the country. He had a much better O-line. He had the tools to succeed. And I understand all of that about CJ. But I do think in the West Coast system and in the Bobby Slowick or Shanahan style system, what you could have is that you'll have basically his floor, in my opinion, is Jimmy G. So if you have CJ, who's 6'3", 220 pounds, whose floor is Jimmy G, in a Shanahan style offense, now that we have the picks, we should have a top receiver. We should have at least one or two more capable running backs. Rex Burkhead needs to be shooed away, right? We should have an actual roster that can support, even if CJ was a Jimmy G level player. What happens with Bryce Young? There's going to be a lot of concern. I mean, seriously, I'm going to bring my rosary beads every single time I have to watch him on Sunday, because I'm going to be praying for him and making sure that he doesn't get hurt. And it's not just a single injury; it's the cumulative injuries over 3-4 years getting pummeled by 320-pound D linemen, and that is a concern that I have about Bryce Young.
So I do want to respond to what you were saying. First off, because I want to make sure for listeners out there, the QB measurements haven't come out yet. The only people that they measured so far today was just the linebackers who competed. So
that's why I thought. That's why I first said I don't know if it's true or not, because that's what I thought as well. But
for sure. So to your point though, VT, about if that's why CJ Stroud at 2, I don't love, because I like, what is his ceiling? And if you're telling me his ceiling is Jimmy G at number 2, I'll pass. Just give me one Anderson.
I would think that's his floor.
Well, okay. Well, let's just say he ultimately he is a Jimmy G. Look at what like you said, the West Coast offense and build a team around him. Listen, the 49ers just traded draft picks to go get Trey Lance because they feel like Jimmy G wasn't the long-term answer. Now, obviously, he can be better than Jimmy G. I understand what you're saying. But my point is, yeah, if you're talking about at number 2, your best bet, and, you said it's his floor, but you're thinking about a guy who can be, his floor is Jimmy G. I'm cool off that. Like, I would rather go get, another guy like Will Anderson or maybe swing at, we'll see about Will Levis. I would much rather have CJ Stroud than Will Levis at this point. But yeah, like as far as the Jimmy G comp, I'm cool off that personally.
To be honest with you, I don't think he reminds me of Jimmy G. He reminds me of a Dominic McNabb. I think he'd be that's who his floor to me is Dominic McNabb. The way he sits in the pocket, the way he can get out of the pocket, plus his arm strength has a lot of McNabb type playing skill to it. But that's just me.
This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they about to stampede.